Hey, what's up, guys? So, we just finished watching the fourth episode of Skeleton Crew, and we're about halfway through the season now. I feel like it's close enough to give a fair judgment on the show. Honestly, it's not bad at all. That brings us to our main point why shows like Skeleton Crew and Andor seem to be Disney's best shows overall. Like, obviously, they seem like they're at two opposite ends of the spectrum. One is meant for adults, the other for kids. But, these are shows that aren't part of the main Star Wars storyline. They're not super popular, and not a ton of people are going to watch them right off the bat. It's funny because these are the two best shows when compared to bigger projects like Kenobi, Ahsoka, and The Acolyte, which everyone's watching. So there's a lot of reasons why shows like these are doing so much better and why they're of better quality. That's what we're diving into in this video.
Yeah, and going off those ideas, I think some of the main reasons could be that there's a lot of check boxes and executive overhead in these larger projects. Maybe it's not that these issues don't exist at all, but they're less enforced in these more obscure projects. Something like The Acolyte, Ahsoka, or Kenobi, these were the flagship projects for Disney Star Wars. They had a lot of hopes for them, and they really felt like they had to involve themselves heavily. And I think that's a major contributor to the lack of quality in these shows. There's just too many executives trying to get their hands on the project, making sure that this and that are included, even if they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things for the enjoyment of the fans. That contributes to a decline in quality. Smaller shows like Skeleton Crew and Andor didn't have that kind of interference, and that's why I think they're so much better.
Yeah, 100%. I completely agree with that. Like you said, whenever the executives or top people at Disney get more involved in a show or movie, 9 times out of 10, it's not going to be a good thing. These people don't usually understand how to write stories, direct, or handle the creative aspects of a project. With these smaller projects, what's happening is you're letting the actual storytellers, like the writers, do their thing without an agenda or corporate narrative being pushed on them. That's why Skeleton Crew and Andor, even though they're not super popular shows right off the bat, end up doing so much better. And I think if Disney would just step back and realize that letting the writers and creators do their thing is the best way forward, they could actually rake in more money and do better as a business. And honestly, that should be the main goal at the end of the day.
Exactly. The interesting part is, what would make Disney turn things around? What would get us more shows like Andor and Skeleton Crew, bigger and better storylines that the fans actually want to see? We wish the same thing could have happened with Ahsoka, Kenobi, and The Acolyte. It would have been great to see those shows with the same level of storytelling and creative freedom. The problem is that Star Wars is such a huge franchise and such a big part of Disney streaming that the executives feel they have to get involved. It's too important. There's too much money on the line. But I think that thinking is part of the problem. The heavy involvement, the restrictions, the mandatory inclusions, the checkboxes, all of that leads to a worse product. What they really need is to let these skilled writers, creators, and directors do their thing. They're hired for a reason, after all. And it makes me wonder, maybe this won't happen until Star Wars becomes somewhat of a failing franchise when it's not making the same kind of money it used to. If the executives stop caring as much, we might start seeing more shows like Andor and Skeleton Crew. Honestly, I hope that's the case, and I hope we get more great stories with interesting characters like we saw with Kenobi, Ahsoka, and Anakin. That's really what I want to see the most.